Hey everybody, welcome back to a new video. Now I always get the question of, will this specific solar panel work with my power station? And in order to get rid of some of that confusion, I wanted to come up with this video. This is a very basic video about what a solar panel is and how it works and how you can connect it up to each of these power stations. Now I have three different power stations here on the table. I have the Energizer 320, I have the UPEZ 1200, and I have the Bluetti AC 200 Max. And each of these has a little bit different input voltage, so the way that you connect up solar panels differs on each one. So it's important to know how the solar panels put out power and how they connect to each of these power stations. Now there are so many different types of solar panels that you can purchase for your power station, and I like to break it down into two main categories. You have your folding portable solar panel and you have your glass rigid panel. And there are advantages and disadvantages to each one. Portable solar panels are a little bit more expensive. They are more expensive because there's just a lot more manufacturing that goes into these. They have some other features and adapters, and some of them even have USB-C or USB output, so you can charge other devices while you're using these. They are also very convenient because they fold up and take up much less space and they're lightweight. For example, this is a 120 watt panel and this is a 100 watt panel, and you can see the size is very different. Now this is what you call a quad fold panel. This has 4 individual sections that are connected together, and there are different types of folding panels. You have your bifold panels, which I just did a full video on my bifold panels, and if you guys want to watch that, I'd recommend that. I'll have that down in the video description. One of the best options was this Blu-Rise 120. So there are many different options and advantages to these panels, but there are some disadvantages. One of the disadvantages to these panels is that these are made of fabric and plastic, and the sun will eventually cause deterioration to the fabric and the actual coating of the solar panels. So these aren't really meant for a constant outdoor use every single day for years and years. This is meant to be used during a camping setup or a portable setup. It's meant to be used in a temporary power situation where maybe you lost power and you want to charge up your power station. That's where this is going to be meant for. So convenience and portability. Now, if you're looking to have a solar panel, to use every single day, you want to go with a glass rigid panel. They are very durable. They're waterproof. They're weatherproof. They can, handle extremes in temperatures. You don't really have to worry about these being outside at all. They do take up much more space, and they are heavy. This is made of aluminum and glass. So, carrying that around is much more difficult than this. Now, the benefits is this is very cheap. These are around $1 per watt. You do have some panels that are higher and lower, but if you're looking for a cheaper panel option, a glass rigid panel will work well for you. Also, you can plan on 25 years of power out of these panels. So now you have to ask yourself, which type of panel do you want to go with? Do you want to go with a glass rigid panel, or do you want to go with a folding or portable setup? Because that's what you want to decide first, and then you can start looking at your panels. Now, before jumping into the actual specifications here, I want to explain a little bit about electricity and give you guys the basics of how do you calculate the power from your solar panel and what do those terms mean. So with the equation of power, it is voltage times amperage equals watts. So there's a combination of voltage and amperage that you times together to give you the amount of wattage that you get on your solar panel. Now, some people compare the voltage of electricity to the pressure of the electricity. So you can compare it to a hose and water going through that hose, and the PSI of the water is equivalent to the pressure. Well, that's like the power going through a wire is the voltage is the pressure of how much pressure is behind that electricity. Moving on to the amperage. Amperage is the volume or the amount of electricity. So a combination of the pressure and volume together will give you the flow of that electricity. Now, the most important thing that you want to worry about with a power station is the voltage input limits. Most power stations will automatically regulate the amperage or the flow of electricity, but they are limited on the voltage input. The components inside a power station have certain voltage limits, and if you go above that voltage limit, you'll damage the inside of the power station and the charging. So you want to make sure that you look up your power station input range. It's in the owner's manual. It'll tell you DC input or solar input, and it'll say a range of voltage. For example, this one goes up to 23.5 volts. So you want to make sure that your solar panel never goes over that amount of voltage. Now, how do you look at the solar panel and determine to see if this solar panel is going to go with this power station? Well, on the back of the panel, there is a rating with a bunch of different terms, and a lot of these terms are the same on each of these solar panels. Some of them have different words, but let's take a look. So you'll have your voltage max power, or VMP, and you'll have your current max power, or IMP. Those are two important numbers to know. I'd say the most important number is the actual open circuit voltage. And this is the maximum amount of voltage that you'll see from this solar panel. So if you want to ask yourself, hey, is this particular solar panel compatible with this? You take a look at the owner's manual or specifications for the power station, see what the maximum voltage is, and then look at your solar panel and see what the maximum voltage is. And as long as the solar panel is under what the power station's maximum voltage is, then it should be compatible. So let's do an example here. This has a maximum input of 23.5 volts. This solar panel, looking at the SunPower Flex 50, the open circuit voltage is 21.5 volts. So this solar panel is compatible with this power station because it won't go over the voltage input. Now, when talking about the amperage of the solar panel, these power stations will limit the amperage automatically. You got to picture it as the solar panel is a pool of energy that's available, and the power station is going to draw the amount of power that it needs. The solar panel is not forcing power into the power station unless you go over voltage. It basically is waiting, ready to be used, and the power station will pull the power it needs. So it'll actually limit. I believe this one has either a 5 or a 3 amp input limit. So putting a giant set of solar panels on this power station would be a waste because it's only going to pull 3 to 5 amps. So let's go ahead and move on to a different scenario and see how it works. Now, in the next portion of the video, I kind of want to go through the entire process of selecting a power station based on your use case, and then determining which type of solar panel you'll want to go with, and then a process on how to determine if that solar panel is the right choice. So let's say I want to go camping and I want a medium-sized power station with quite a bit of watt-hour capacity, so I can power a 12-volt compressor fridge, maybe a fan, and some LED lights. So let's say I've decided on the UPEZ 1200. This has around 1,000 watt-hours capacity, and this will work well for my needs. Now, this is a camping setup, so I'm going to look for something that I want to have portable or that's easy to move. So I've gone with a folding solar panel option. Let's go ahead and look in the owner's manual for the UPEZ 1200 to see what the voltage input limit is. Well, in the owner's manual, it states that it's 12 to 30 volts, meaning that I can hook up a solar panel that goes up to 30 volts without damaging this power station. Now, it's also important to note that the UPEZ 1200 in the owner's manual states that it can charge up to 200 watts, so that makes this a little bit interesting. So let's talk about connecting one solar panel up to this power station to make it simple, and then we'll talk about adding an additional solar panel. But you do want to be thinking about that because you always want to match your solar panels. To get the most power, solar panels want to have the same voltage and amperage, so make sure that when you're going to be hooking panels together to get the most power, they are matched panels. They're the same brand and same model with the same voltage. So this solar panel right here, the Blue Rise 120, it's a portable panel. It works great, and it has a lot of different connections. So I've purchased this one for the UPEZ 1200. It does not go over the 30 volt input range, so no issues there. Now, the easiest way to connect up this solar panel is probably going to be using the MC4 connections. Unfortunately, this power station does not come with any solar adapters. So you look at the charging input, which is 8mm, and you look at your solar panel, which is MC4. I go onto Amazon and I search MC4 to 8mm solar adapter, and there are tons of options that pop up. so I pick the option that looks the best for my use case. So now, say I purchased that, now I have an MC4 to 8mm. I can plug this solar panel into the power station and charge around 100 watts. Now let's step it up a notch and say I want to get 2 of these solar panels. Well, because I already have an MC4 connection to 8mm that I've purchased, and this solar panel supports MC4 connections, which are very easy to connect together in parallel, I can go out, purchase a second solar panel, and purchase these parallel adapters. Now, they are sold in pairs, and all you have to do is you plug in your 2 positives and you get 1 positive out. You plug in your 2 negatives and you get 1 negative out. And you're basically just combining the power of these 2 solar panels so that the voltage stays the same and the amperage goes up. That's a parallel configuration. And you can charge this power station at double the speed. So I have the 2 solar panels. I purchased 2 of them. I have the MC4 connections, and they plug into these MC4 parallel adapters. And I have the adapter that goes from MC4 to 8mm. And now I can connect up 2 of these Blue Rise 120 solar panels to the UPEZ 1200, and I can charge near the max 200 watts. So that is an explanation of how you'd go through the entire process of choosing your power station, what its use case is, do you want to go with a portable or a glass rigid panel, and what type of adapters you'll need for this specific use case. Now in our third scenario, we're going to be talking about a large power station. This is the Bluetti AC200 Max. Now we talked about a small power station that had an input limit of 23.5 volts. Then we moved up to a medium power station that had an input voltage of 30 volts. And now we're talking about the big boys. These ones have bigger ranges of voltage. This one, for example, if you look in the owner's manual, has a voltage input of 10 all the way up to 145 volts. Now the reason that's the case is because this has an amperage input limit, and the higher amps that you get, the more heat and the larger wires that are required. So it's just easier to allow more voltage input than it is to have, 100 amps input. So what they've done on these power stations is they've allowed larger voltage input limits so that you can get much more power. So remember, it's volts times amps equals watts. So if we have 145 volts at 10 amps, that's a ton more power than 20 volts at 10 amps. So that's why you can get more power, is because they have a higher input voltage range. So what you do on these power stations is most of the time you'll be using glass rigid panels, because most people use these for an off-grid setup where they have their solar panels outside all the time. For example, I have 2 solar arrays in my yard. I have one on my shed roof, and then I have a portable unit that has solar panels, and I basically just have these charging up these large power stations. So when you jump up to a big power station, you have lots of opportunities that are available to you. So what you want to do with these is you have a lot of solar panels connected together in series so that they end up getting all the way up to, the 145 voltage input limit. So let's go ahead and talk about solar panel connections in series. So when you go to connect a solar panel in series with another panel, what you do is you end up taking the positive of one panel, connecting it to the negative of another panel. And you do that all the way in a line like a really long snake. And so what happens is all the voltages add up together and the amperage stays the same. So it's basically the opposite type of connection with parallel. If you remember, a parallel connection, the voltage stays the same and the amperage is added up. So on these larger power stations, you can actually do a combination of both series connections and parallel connections to get the maximum amount of charging. So let's go ahead and do a demo of how you would connect up solar panels to get the maximum 900 watts on this power station. Okay, so let's go ahead and say we've decided to go with 100 watt panels that are glass rigid panels for this array. Now you could go with 200 watt panels, but just for this experience here, I'm gonna go with this 100 watt panel that I have here. So remember, this power station has the maximum input of 900 watts and the voltage goes all the way up to 145. So if we do 145 And we want to see how many panels in series will fit into that 145 volts. So if we find the maximum open circuit voltage, which is 21.4, we're going to round that up to 22. That gives us 6.5 panels that we can put into series. So obviously you can't put a half panel in there. So you can put 6 panels of these panels together in series before you have any issues hitting the 145 volts. So we want to get somewhere around 1,000 watts. It's always nice to over panel your system just a little bit so you see that maximum 900 watts more frequently. So if we want to build an array that's 1,000 watts, then we probably want to do 10 panels. And what we would do is we'd do 5 panels in series. So that's 5 panels. And then we take another 5 panels, put that in series. And then we add those two together by putting them in parallel, which will give you right around 1,000 watts peak, but with conditions and heat and voltage drop in your wiring, you're going to see 900 watts on this power station more frequently. So you're not really going to be wasting that much power. You just don't always get the ideal 1,000 watts. So I'd plan on that if I was going to be hooking in panels to this power station. Now, unfortunately, there are companies out there that use proprietary solar panels and connections so they can charge a lot more and make more profits. So some of those companies are Jackery and Goal Zero. They have proprietary solar panels that they charge a ton of money for, and they don't put out any more power than the panels that I've showed in this video. So you may have some challenges trying to connect different branded solar panels up to them. There are adapters online, but I can't guarantee that those adapters will work. Now, if you wanted to see which type of solar panel would be compatible, the best option would probably look up their specific solar panel, look at the specifications for their panel, and then try to find a panel that's within those same ranges. Now, it's important to note that if you go out and ask a company if you can use a different branded solar panel with their product, they're most likely going to come back and say, no, you need to use our specific solar panel. And there might be a lot of reasons behind that. Maybe they just want to guarantee that you have a good experience, or they want more profit. They want you to buy their solar panels, or it has a proprietary connection and you have to use it. So just be aware, the whole purpose of this video is to show you guys that as long as you know the input tolerances for the power station and the output voltage of the solar panel, you should be able to find a good match for that without having to ask anybody if it's a compatible solar panel. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the video. I just have a few more things that I want to talk about, but hopefully you guys have found this video helpful and it wasn't too confusing. Now, there's a ton of new jargon and lingo that you have to pick up with power stations and solar panels. So if this is new to you, I would just make one recommendation, and that is just keep watching, just keep reading, get yourself immersed into this and you'll start picking up what these terms mean. And no one's going to pick this up right at the beginning. If you feel overwhelmed, that's totally normal. Just through repetition and keep watching this stuff and you'll get comfortable with it. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about just before ending the video is basically you want to keep it simple. And the easiest way to keep it simple, at least what I've picked up over the last couple years that I've been doing this, is if you have MC4 connections, you can do a lot of things. Now, first off, most power stations come with MC4 adapters, and there's a lot of solar panels out there that come with MC4 adapters, so they just connect right up. For example, the glass rigid panels, the X-Star SP100, the Blu-Rise 120, those are all 3 panels that come with MC4 connections, and if your power station has the adapter for MC4, it just connects right up. Now, this also allows you to connect panels easily together in parallel or connect them together in series for larger power stations. And you can also even add in extension cables to get you more distance between your solar panel outside or your power station inside, whether it's inside your tent, your trailer, or your house. So my recommendation, just keep it simple, stick with MC4 connections. Now, of course, there are power stations that don't accept MC4 connections or don't have adapters with it. So that's where you'll have to find a specific adapter. But your EcoFlows, your Blue Eddies, your Energizer, Go Labs, FF Power, Alcatel, all these bigger brand name power stations come with the MC4 adapters. So you basically just connect up solar panels to that. So hopefully you guys found this video helpful. It was kind of just an overview, but with a ton of new information for a lot of you, I'm sure. Now, I was thinking about doing this in a series called Power Stations 101 and some other future videos about this. So throw a comment down below about other things that you want me to talk about. Also, if you guys like this, please give me a thumbs up. If I get good feedback that you guys actually like this video, then it'll make me more motivated to make another video, because trust me guys, this was a lot of information that I had to put together and a lot of planning to talk about these things and kind of line everything up. So let me know if you guys want to see any other videos in this series. Also, reminder, give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.